Two police officers, clad in crisp blue uniforms, pulled up to my garage in their patrol car. I watched them from beneath the lift, wiping grease from my hands as I tried to gauge their mood. At first, their cheerful demeanor struck me as unusual, but their expressions darkened the moment they approached. After confirming my identity, they delivered news that made my stomach drop. Something had happened to my wife, Kate. She was in the hospital, but they wouldn't provide details. Panic surged through me and I instinctively moved to leave, but they intercepted me, questioning my whereabouts over the past 3 hours. I explained I'd been at the garage all day and suggested they confirm with my mechanics, Mike and Pete. I did admit to slipping out around 11 a.m. for a quick coffee run. One officer questioned Mike and Pete while the other jotted down the name of the coffee shop. Then they asked to see my truck. Without hesitation, I led them outside. They meticulously inspected the vehicle before finally allowing me to leave, for the hospital. My heart pounded when I arrived and learned about Kate's condition: severe blood loss, emergency surgery, and multiple transfusions. But something else unsettled me: the doctor's peculiar half-smile as he delivered the grim news. It felt inappropriate, almost mocking. Before I could process any of it, the same two officers intercepted me again. We sat in the hospital cafeteria, nursing cups of lukewarm coffee as they probed into my marriage. I told them the truth. Kate and I had been married for 8 years. She was a successful attorney who had recently quit her job to prepare for motherhood after years of waiting for the right time. Then came a question that caught me off guard. "What? Can you tell us about John Barton?" I frowned. I don't know anyone by that name. The officers exchanged glances but offered no explanation before walking away. When I finally returned home, I was met with an even more unsettling sight: forensic scientists and a detective combing through my house. The detective introduced himself and repeated the same questions the officers had asked, with one chilling addition. "There are a few drops of blood in the downstairs bathroom. Any idea how they got there?" I shook my head. No idea. Then I met his gaze. "Am I a suspect?" He exhaled slowly. "We have the multiple leads. My colleague is speaking with Mrs. Barton." The name hit me like a thunderbolt. John Barton. "Who is he?" I pressed. The detective hesitated. "I can't disclose that." Confusion gnawed at me. I went upstairs, the house feeling alien and cold. My mind drifted back to that morning at work, my thoughts preoccupied with my wife. We hadn't been intimate in weeks, and I'd chalked it up to her transition out of work and the looming reality of motherhood. I wanted to rekindle our passion, so I decided to surprise her. After test driving a car Pete had just serviced, I headed home, only to find an unfamiliar car in the driveway. My stomach twisted with suspicion. Inside, the house was eerily silent until I heard it, the unmistakable sounds of pleasure coming from our bedroom. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone. At the garage, I always recorded videos when clients brought in their cars as a precaution against false damage claims. That same habit kicked in now. Heart hammering, I climbed the stairs, pressed record, and cracked the bedroom door open just enough to see Kate, with a man I didn't recognize, in our bed. Rage threatened to consume me, but I forced myself to turn away. I collapsed against the hallway wall, breathless and shattered. Minutes passed, maybe hours, before their whispers finally replaced the sounds of betrayal. I needed a plan. No violence, just swift, humiliating revenge. My mind turned to an item I'd brought back from my time in the Army Reserve: a stun grenade, a non-lethal device designed to incapacitate through a blinding flash and deafening blast. Perfect. I modified the grenade, added a rope loop, and returned to the bedroom. Without hesitation, I attached it to the light fixture and pulled the pin. The explosion was instantaneous, light and sound engulfing the room in chaos. When I entered, ready to confront them, what I saw froze me in place. The man lay sprawled on the bed, motionless. Something was wrong. Below his waist, something was missing. Kate lay on the floor, her eyes wide, lips trembling. This wasn't the outcome I'd expected. Then came the screams, horrified, guttural, and the slamming of doors. The man stumbled out of bed, clutching his groin, howling in agony. I needed to erase any evidence. Frantically, I secured the grenade's detonator to the rope and scanned the room for anything incriminating. Then I heard it, the sound of retching. In the bathroom, Kate was on her knees, vomiting into the toilet. I felt nothing, no sympathy, no concern, only a cold, empty detachment. As I turned to leave, something on the floor caught my eye, a warm, soft object I couldn't yet comprehend. And that's when everything spiraled out of control. A severed piece of flesh, the tip of a tongue. Without a second thought, I carried it to the first-floor bathroom and flushed it away. There was no chance of reattaching that. Trying to stay as quiet as possible, I slipped into the night. The distance between our house and the neighbors worked in my favor. Halfway to the garage, I emptied my pockets into a roadside trash can. 10 minutes later, I was back in my small, cluttered work garage. Breathing heavily, my mind raced as I reached for my phone and called Pete and Mike, my loyal, oil-stained employees and trusted friends. They arrived quickly, clearly alarmed by my tone. Before they could speak, I asked them to cover for me, to say I had been with them for the last 45 minutes. Their response was immediate. "Of course, boss." But I held up a hand. "Wait, before you agree too quickly, hear me out." I warned them that what I had done was serious. So serious that once they knew, they might not want to be involved. I wasn't even sure what charges I could face. Maybe jail time. Changing into my old overalls, I rubbed an oily rag over my hands and face, bracing myself for the inevitable arrival of the police. Then I told them the whole story. Mike was the first to crack. He lasted only 15 seconds before bursting into laughter, which quickly set Pete off. Soon, all three of us were howling with uncontrollable laughter. It took 5 full minutes to calm down. With firm handshakes and promises of support, they went back to work. Over the next hour, spontaneous fits of laughter echoed through the dingy garage. Kate was finally facing the consequences she deserved. That evening, I returned home and began cleaning the master bedroom. I scrubbed the bathroom floor and threw out the bedding. It had to go. I made a mental note to buy a new rug, and the torn curtains needed replacing too. I kept myself busy, trying to avoid my thoughts. But the constant ringing of the phone and the relentless knocking at the door made it impossible. The media frenzy was inescapable. A scandalous mix of infidelity and a man losing his dignity. It was the perfect storm for gossip. I answered the door once before finally shutting off my phone. With no more distractions, I sat down and let myself reflect. Did I regret what I'd done? Strangely, no. I had always despised cheaters. I had seen betrayal turn people into someone unrecognizable. But the real shock was Kate. I had believed she was as devoted to me as I was to her. Our intimate life had been incredible, until recently. One particular memory kept resurfacing. 2 months ago, Kate mentioned she was planning to retire early, to enjoy her last days of freedom. The comment had unsettled me. I had assumed she'd work until at least the 7th month of her pregnancy. Something about her desire for one last celebration before settling down felt off. My personal cell phone interrupted my thoughts. Not many people had this number. The caller ID showed Kate's parents. They lived 3 hours away. I answered. Her mother's voice was tight with anxiety. She skipped the pleasantries and got straight to the point. "Do you know why journalists are swarming our house? They say we'll find out eventually, but..." She hesitated, struggling with her words. "Did you watch the news? They're talking about a woman, a cheater, who bit off her lover's dignity." I sighed. "Yes, Mom. Look, there's no easy way to say this, so I'll get straight to it. The woman they're talking about is..." A sudden, chilling scream burst through the phone, followed by a sharp beep. The call had ended. My heart pounded as I stared at the screen, a creeping sense of dread settling in. And then it hit me. Something crucial. Earlier that morning, I'd left my phone recording just outside my bedroom door. The pain was still raw, still fresh, but if I never uncovered Kate's reasons, I knew I'd never trust another woman again. I'd be doomed, a lonely, bitter man, forever carrying this burden of betrayal. Desperate for answers, I hit play on the recording. I already knew what I'd hear. The agony of that day still cut too deep. So I closed my eyes and let only the voices reach me. The camera, abandoned on the floor, had only captured the ceiling. But the words, they revealed everything. Kate, this past week has been incredible. Does it really have to end today? My offer still stands. Just say the word, and I'll divorce Sarah. I'll marry you. A long pause. Then Kate's voice, soft but firm. No, it wouldn't work. What kind of start would that be? A marriage with a man who left his wife. And kids? I love Dave too much to hurt him like that. Really? You love him that much? Because he's not the one lying next to you right now. Silence hung heavy. Then she spoke again. You're wrong. I love him completely. From the moment I met him, I knew he was my soulmate. I want nothing more than to grow old with him, to die in his arms, surrounded by our grandchildren. A scoff. Then why are you here with me? More silence. Then Kate finally whispered, I just miss the past. I was a wild girl before I met Dave. I miss the thrill. Walking into a bar, feeling wanted, deciding if a guy gets what he wants or not. Lately, Dave's been off deer hunting every other weekend. 3 weeks ago, I went to a bar, just for old time's sake. One night turned into 2. Then I ran into you. And here we are. I stopped the recording. The problem wasn't me. I'd been a good husband, a loving partner. She was just cold. The days that followed were a blur of disappointment. 2 days later, the reporters finally left our quiet street. The hospital administrator called, asking me to bring pajamas for Kate. I ignored the request, let her deal with the humiliating hospital gowns. Then her father called, apologized for Kate's behavior, asked if I'd keep in touch with the family, and, as if offering some twisted incentive, reminded me he had another daughter, newly divorced. Sorry, Dad. Days later, the news broke. Mr. Not-So-Big-Deal had been released from the hospital, but that wasn't the real headline. The journalists had done their digging and unearthed his dirty laundry. A serial cheater, exposed for the world to see. And the cherry on top? Though the surgeons had managed to sew his manhood back together, the prognosis wasn't promising. Let's just say, it probably wouldn't function as intended. A poetic kind of justice. By the end of the week, I had an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Barton, or Sarah, as she insisted I call her, was a pretty woman with sad eyes. She'd heard rumors that I might have evidence helpful to her divorce case. I neither confirmed nor denied it, but explained that coming forward would expose me too. She understood, apologizing for asking. But something about her sadness struck. It took chord. I felt for her. So I pulled up the video file and played only the aftermath. The moment her husband's agonized screams filled the air. She flinched but quickly composed herself. Let's just say that when she left, sadness was no longer the dominant emotion on her face. And because I'm such a helpful guy, I told her she could always come back, if she ever needed a pick-me-up. That wouldn't be the last time I saw Sarah Barton. The strangest visitor, however, arrived on Saturday. The detective I'd spoken to after everything went down showed up at my door, this time out of his suit, dressed casually in jeans and a shirt. Hey, son. No, I won't come in. Just wanted to let you know that since there's insufficient evidence, I recommended closing the case. I thanked him. But as he turned to leave, he hesitated. Listen, he added, glancing back. I'm retiring at the end of the year. If I come back after that, will you tell me how you did it? I just smiled and wished him a good day. Then came Kate's letter. My dear Dave, I can't express how ashamed and sorry I am for what I did to you. I understand perfectly why you haven't visited me, and I forgive you unconditionally. I never truly considered the full consequences of my actions. I certainly never imagined my parents would actually disown me. I know I've lost your love, your trust, and your respect forever. That truth hurts more than I can describe. I will understand if you never want to speak to me again. But if it helps your healing, I'd like to explain why I did what I did. Just know, it was all my fault. The doctors say I won't be able to speak normally for a long time, maybe ever. Apparently, when I bit down, I swallowed part of my tongue. They're considering an experimental stretching technique to restore function. I hope it works. At the very least, I need something, anything, to distract me from the dull, loveless, childless future I now face. Take whatever you want in the divorce. I'll sign anything. Just, if you could keep me on your health insurance a little while longer, I'd be forever grateful.